Hey guys, welcome to Ride in Java. Today I thought I would talk to you a little bit about Indonesia and share with you a few things that Indonesia is famous for that you may not even know come from Indonesia. Well, look at the banana market there. Alright, so 5 things, right? 5 things that Indonesia is famous for. Number one is coffee. And I know that that coffee is dear to the hearts of most of us, anyway. Not all of us, but most of us. And, there's some famous coffees from around the world. I think probably for me, when I think of coffee and I think of good coffee, I think of Colombian coffee. I don't know why, probably because of the advertising that I had growing up as a kid on TV. But Colombian coffee, it always comes to mind. Juan Valdez and his Colombian coffee. His little donkey right on TV. But let me tell you something that's interesting. We use the term Java, right, synonymously with coffee. And I could have a cup of Java. And then that is just a cup of coffee to me. It could be from anywhere in the world. It doesn't really matter because Java is just coffee. But in fact, Java originally meant coffee from the island of Java. You see, when the Dutch colonized Indonesia, they originally set up a lot of coffee plantations here on the island of Java. That's where we're riding. And coffee was named after the port that it was exported from, right? And so coffee from Java was called, Java coffee. But over time, because Java was such a prominent exporter of coffee, right, the term became synonymous for coffee. And so today, we have a cup of Java. It may be Ethiopian coffee, it may be Colombian coffee, it may be Mexican coffee, who knows? It's just coffee. But the term originated here in Indonesia. Now, Indonesia is not only famous for the term Java, but it has a couple different types of coffee that it's famous for as well. One would be Sumatra coffee. Right? If you drink Starbucks, I know that you have heard of the term, or heard of the roast that they have, the Sumatra blend. Well, that is from the island of Sumatra. It's one of the western islands here. It is the major western island here in Indonesia. But they also have another type of coffee that they're famous for, and that is kopi luwak. Right? Coffee luwak, or pronounced kopi luwak. And that is affectionately referred to as cat poo coffee. Right? You know why? Well, because there's this little animal that looks kind of like a cat. And as the story goes, right, he only eats the very best beans. Only the very best ones. And then he poops out the seeds, right? The actual bean part that we use to make coffee. And so then somebody comes along and he scrapes up those droppings. They clean them up, they roast them, process them for us, so we can drink the most expensive coffee in the world, right? Cat poo coffee. Yes, for around $300 a pound, you can drink cat poo too. Look at these fancy buses. Nice, nice. With a police escort. That's pretty cool. Get a police escort. Nice Jeeps. So Indonesia is famous for coffee, right? But they're also famous for, number 2, is orangutans. Right, orangutans, the red-haired, long-armed primates, right? That all kids love orangutans. Well, they are from Indonesia as well. They only live in the rainforests of Borneo and Sumatra, both of which are in Indonesia. So if you like orangutans, well, you like something from Indonesia. All right, number 3. The third thing that Indonesia is famous for, that is the Spice Islands. Right? If you like cloves, nutmeg, or mace, well, then you like something that is from Indonesia, or at least something that originated from Indonesia. In the 1600s, right, the only place that stuff grew was here in Indonesia. And so nations fought over control of the Spice Islands. Well, that's from Indonesia. It's interesting, though, that as Indonesia was the original, right, Spice Islands and the original exporter of cloves, that because they invented a new cigarette around the turn of the 20th century called clove cigarettes, and because so many people smoke those cigarettes here, that Indonesia has now become a net importer of cloves rather than a net exporter. Alright, so that is the Spice Islands, right? Indonesia is famous for the Spice Islands. Now, the fourth thing that Indonesia is famous for is the Komodo dragons. Right? Komodo dragons, very famous, very popular with young boys. The Komodo dragon has so much bacteria in its bite that it'll kill you, not because of the bite itself, but because of the infection that will set in later. And that is typically how they will take down their prey. They'll bite it, and then it'll go off, and that infection will get so bad that it eventually dies, and then they'll come along and they'll eat it. Right? And so the Komodo dragons only live on the island of Komodo and a neighboring island right there. But it's interesting that until 1910, right, those animals were only rumored to exist. Right? It wasn't until then, when the Dutch had their first expedition to the island, they shot a couple of the dragons and brought them back to Indonesia, or brought them back to Java, and documented their existence. So 1910, Komodo dragons are confirmed to exist only in Indonesia. Now, that leads us to number 5, right? The fifth thing that Indonesia is famous for in our list of famous things, that is the island of Bali. A lot of people have heard of Bali, right? But a lot of people are not aware that Bali is actually an island in Indonesia. And so Bali is famous for its nice beaches, for its surfing, just for its overall tourist appeal for fun outdoor activities. It's also, famous for its Hindu culture that is there, very unique. A lot of people are attracted to Bali for those reasons. So those are the 5 things that Indonesia is famous for on our top 5 list today. That is coffee, orangutans, the Spice Islands, Komodo dragons, and the island of Bali. Until next time, this is Ride in Java, and I'll talk to you later.